when I was getting my house appraised, right, I met this gentleman, and he was not like any other appraiser. Because I don't know if you ever had your get an appraiser, they're very staunch, and they have not much to say. And surprisingly, I said we struck up a conversation, and I said, "Wow!" And he was very jovial and very open and forthcoming. And of course, I waited till after my appraisal came in, then I called him, right? And we talked, and we struck up a friendship, right? And so this name is Curt Huang. He is from NYC, Queens, New York. He's been an appraiser for 11 years. He started his own company called Zephyr Appraisals. And he's been at this for 11 years, and he has appraised over 10,000 homes, all right? But in addition to that, he's a family man, a father, right? And a real estate investor, agent, and property manager. So, Curt, thank you for coming on tonight. And he's going to talk about keys to appraisals, right? What you need to do to get the best bang, to get your best buck for your bang. That's correct? That sounds good?
Best bang for your buck.
Thank you. Best bang for your buck. So, Curt, thank you for coming, man. Thank you for taking time out from your family. Appreciate you. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, everybody, for coming in tonight for the meetup here. Just a small, brief intro for myself. I've been at this appraisal for 11 years in the New York City region, primarily handling single families, multifamilies, from 2 to 4 units, condos, co-ops, of that variety. Pretty much, I've seen a good, decent amount of neighborhoods all around New York. So where the migration is coming, where the jobs are coming, where people kind of going in and out of like the greater New York City area. I kind of see and how it's been impacting on the real estate itself. That's my main gig over there. In regards to getting an appraisal, most of my clients are lenders. All the big ones and a couple of small ones, and you have the community one, and you have the hard money lenders, and you have some all sorts of private lenders, and kind of runs through the whole gamut. So normally in my line of work and everything, the clients themselves are the lenders. So a lot of times when I'm in a situation where I'm meeting multiple various people along the way for an appraisal, where it be in real estate agent, where it be the investor themselves, or it be the owner, or all sorts of people. It's a little sort of touch and go with like what we can say, what we can't say, and especially we also have to always keep in mind our confidentiality and our previous to all the information for our clients, which are the lenders. So that's why sometimes you might come across some appraisers where they're not as talkative, or they don't want to disclose too much, or they just keep their mouth shut. And then one of those, they're not there to be cold and disrespectful. That what they're trying to do is just be respectful to the lender and the client themselves, and then all the kind of information kind of has to be conveyed through them. They're the first ones that has to know the information, because they're the one that hires us for the work itself. But to get a successful appraisal for mostly for residential parts, a couple of items that are usually our appraisers will want to see and want to know. If you have any, if it's a multifamily, they want to know the rent roll, they want to know the leases. If you have sort of like a fix and flip projects, they want to know the scope of work, they want to know the architectural plans, and anything that would have to do with the property itself, where normally you can't just access it from public data. Anything that's only private amongst themselves, or the architects, or the developers themselves. So all that stuff is very pertinent, because all that it's compiled within the appraisal report. And within that, one of the main components of what we do is looking at sales comps. And sales comps, and a lot of you guys already know, it's what's going on in each individual market, how much people are paying, why they're paying this kind of price, why the prices are going from, they're asking, $500,000 and then it's going for 550. It's a bidding war and things are going absurdly over asking, and all that type of situation. It's very crucial for appraiser to kind of see, because it's all part of the final value and how we develop those reports over there. Aside from that, other important things that to know for an appraisal, access is very important. We need access to see everything, the whole property, just for them just to see, if there's any damages or anything that looks suspicious, or anything that's awry about the property. Because at the end of the day, it's the appraiser themselves, that they have to be licensed by the state wherever they're conducting their business, and that's their bread and butter, and they have to protect that thing like it's that's absolutely crucial, because they have their name on the line. It's stamped to that, so they have to be very, very protective of that. So that's why sometimes appraisers, you might see they're very, very not so talkative, but the reason why sometimes as well, their butts on their line.
Okay.
But aside from that, those are the main things that appraiser kind of looks for. And then from the sales comps and everything, it's how the appraiser sort of extrapolates all that information of what's going on, why these people are paying these prices for certain things. That's the main thing that I do. But more so on the multifamily and then all the commercial investing. Another approach to value for an appraiser is the income approach, where you guys are a lot more deal with more like on a daily basis. All the cap rates, all the NOIs, all the expenses and everything that's going on with the property. That's more of a main component of an income producing property. So that's sort of like the main difference between a commercial appraisal and residential appraisal. So when you are, when you're doing a commercial appraisal and you come across one of those situations, the leases, the expenses, and then everything that's stated on your prior tax returns on the property, all that information is extremely crucial for the appraiser to be digested, to come up with a very, very credible report. But aside from that, the questions that normally appraisers ask, they should be extremely objective on the property itself, and they're not going to say, do you like this, do you not like this, that appraisers they don't talk about that stuff. So and they're there to come in sort of like an impartial third-party opinion on the whole transaction, and that's sort of like the main role. Mm-hmm.
So question,
yeah,
you just said about income approach on multifamily, commercial multifamily.
Yes.
Do you use, have you ever used the income approach in residential multifamily where it's an investment property?
Yes, I have. Those are certain situations where I've utilized that sort of instances. I'm just going to use this for example. In the Bronx, there was a large 4-family in the Bronx, and these types of properties, they don't trade very often. And then for this particular property, one thing that kind of stood out, that kind of more so than any other 4 families that I've traded, is they have 4-car garage, and then in addition to that, 4 additional parking spots. So if you know anything about the Bronx, and it's a very dense area, and then parking in general is tough. So if you have 4 garages and 4 parking in addition to that, so something like that, yes, that's an additional information that will help benefit the borrower. Yes.
So therefore, you treat that as a commercial property in the way you appraise it then? Slightly.
So for the appraisal wise, there's 3 approaches to value. The most prevalent one is the sales comparison approach, and then also the income approach, and then the cost approach. Most of the information that we do as a residential appraiser is in the sales comparison approach. And then once in a while, we have this case, an income approach is also analyzed as well.
Okay. I'm sorry, go on. I just had to ask that question before I forgot. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's on you.
So let's go. I'm gonna go back to the same thing, that same instance, that building you said there. So now, how does that affect the value of other buildings around it?
So in this case, it was a situation where this is a sale, and then the value of the property was on the contract for a rather high number for this property. And then one thing about the property is, like, similarly, like I said before, there's very, very few properties that have four garages. So I mean, for something like very, very unique like that, if the loan goes through and the deal goes through, and then there's going to be a new benchmark on 4-family prices in that area, because it was a very high price point. So, but thereafter the fact, it will help pretty much all the other 4 families in the area, if they ever plan to refinance or sell, that register as a comp. Okay. And people would see, yes, so people are paying this XYZ price for something like this. That's will help out pretty much a lot of people with similar properties.
Okay, so what are some of the things? Somebody had a question. What are some of the things that can help a person, like, is there something they can do to help raise the value of the property up, right? Because I know sometimes people think, oh, well, that guy got appraised for this much. How come I didn't get it? So what are the differences, the variances that come into play when people go, how come my property is so low and this one's so high, it's higher? We got the same square footage. What else is in there that goes into that? So
this is more so for the residential side of things. So on the residential side of things, normally an appraiser of all like the major physical features of the property, all of that information, there has to be another sales comparison or comp that would have a similar feature. So I'm just taking this for instance. If the 4-family, they have altogether 8 bedrooms, you want to have a comp that's 8 bedrooms. If altogether that 4 families is 3,500 square feet, you want to have something that's 3,500 square feet. If some of a 4-family, they have something, it's going to be, let's say 4 bathrooms, or the lots 40 by 100. Or if it's a brick design, or it's been fully renovated. So all of these physical features within a property, an appraiser has to show the best of his or her abilities, another comp that has sold and then it has those features. So we kind of see what the market's sort of absorbing that feature of the property, and kind of seeing like, hey, there's somebody willing to pay for this type of property with 8 bedrooms or 3,500 square feet. So the terminology that will be used is called bracketing. The bracketing means there's somebody that is out there that's willing to pay this price for this feature of that property.
Okay. So now with the appraisal, appraiser here in New York City, if you had a license in, let's say, North Carolina, it's about the same thing, right?
Principles,
Yeah.
of appraisals is standard throughout the nation.
Okay.
But you're going to have some local variances for your area, where if certain places that you that might be out there, people pay higher for ranches versus colonials or capes, or they want the in-ground pool, or certain places where they rather have an extra acre, or sort of like different local nuances that might come through. That's why it's important to have somebody that's local, that knows the area, knows what people are paying for, why they're paying for, and then that's where the value is coming from.
Okay, good, Desmond.
Thank you, Lottie and Curt Huang. One of the things is happening of the last few years is the Airbnbs and the short rentals, right? So certain areas, like you said, you'd have to find a comparable. It could be next to water, Bay Area, beach, whatever it is, and it could be a two family or 4-family. And that person probably values that 4-family higher. Is that going to be compared to what the income is? How would you assess that property if it's a 4-family and the amount of money that has been shown maybe in the last 2-3 years when it comes to appraising that value? Would you use commercial or try to find another property that's doing it?
So normally in your instance, Desmond, an appraiser will want to use exactly, if it's going to be a 4-family, they will want to use another 4-family just for functionality sakes. You want to make it as a like property as humanly possible. If it's going to be size, it's going to be location, it's going to be the room count, the square footage, all that information. You want to keep it as close as possible to it. And then regarding the Airbnb, so typically on normal circumstances, the properties that are being rented via Airbnb wise, those usually fetch a higher income than typical normal rate. But as a residential appraiser, what they normally look at is what the market rate is of that property, as if it was a sort of market rent, not Airbnb as much. So there's a good situation where the reliance is more so on the sales comparison approach, less so the income approach.
So if you didn't find another property that was doing the same, you could, not saying advise, would probably understand why the asking price could be a little higher than what the other normal 4-family units that would normally be a monthly rental, you would say.
Right. But in addition to that, the property that is Airbnb suitable, normally it's slightly more renovated, and normally it shows
updated.
Right, it's more updated. People find it a little more appealing when they walk in. Those sort of factors, or like the conditional factors of that property, could be taken into consideration as well once the appraisal is being.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fascinated by this because, residential multifamily, right? Now, you said the income approach, use the income approach sometimes. What makes you use the income approach sometimes, not all the time?
Well, sometimes is for those rare occurrences where a sales approach is not fully reliable upon, whereas you need additional information to sort of like support your final value. Going back to like 4-family with the 4-car garages over there, and that sort of aspect. Whereas, I can't find another comparable with another 4-family with 4-car garage. So out of the box, like, why is somebody willing to pay that price for this property? And then I'm kind of going back and forth with it, and then you kind of see there's additional income that can be generated from those garages, and that's why the buyer wants to pay this price for it. Right, and help the cash flow and everything for the property.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have a question? Go ahead, Desmond.
So how far would you go outside the region to find another property?
So normal circumstances. After the so just sort of backtrack. Once an appraiser sees the address of the property, if they have some idea what they're doing and they kind of have a sense of that property, what they do is they run a quick CMA anyway. From the CMA, depending on the area, they always want to see what's been sold the most recent and the closest as much as possible. And when there's no comps that meets that criteria, then they have to expand the parameters. But like your local area, it really depends. But like, New York's a very urban area. And then it's for generally purposes, if you go like within half a year and then half a mile, you should have a very, very good indicator of value for all the comparable.
Okay.
But you live in a more rural or suburban area, you kind of have to go a little further out and then sometimes further back.
So you won't go as far back as 2 years or nothing like that, maybe a year the most.
I mean, I have gone back 2 years, like if there are properties, if it's a new construction, if it's a waterfront property, if it's a total custom built in this areas where, people, they don't trade anymore. They just refinance because they want to live there. They're not going. So in those instances where it's almost going back to what I was saying before, we need to bracket a certain feature if it's going to be a new construction and there hasn't been a new sale in the past year and a half. Then you kind of look back in time and saying, hey, this is what somebody's willing to pay back then for a property like this.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, Curt, we'd like to thank you for coming on tonight, right, and sharing your knowledge about appraisals and what it can do and how it's done, right, and also for introducing me to the income approach, because I'm always thought there's just straight up value from whatever miles, 2 miles away, a mile away, and that's it, right? So always learn something new on this meetup. It's always good to always network on this meetup also. So once again, thank you for coming, everyone, tonight. Once again, thank you everyone for coming to Financial Independence through Small Multifamily Investing, and thank our guest, Curt Huang, again from New York City, from Zephyr Appraisals. Thank you much, and see you next week.